pretty cool.
So, but yeah, it's amazing. We have an internal website where I often put things like I'm looking for someone who knows about plastics or jet fuel, or sometimes, brewing beer. We're looking at yeast. Those are usually the easy ones to find. But if I put it out there, then the engineers contact me and they meet up. So.
And we are live, Judy.
Yeah. Okay. Should I stay in a certain place so it can
No, I have it oriented on you. Gentlemen, thank you for coming today. On behalf of our board of directors and our president and CEO, Mr. Michael Espiritu, welcome to the EDC. He's with the validation of the course for the national championship air races right now. Consequently, that's going on this week. Validating the course.
Oh, cool.
So he's down there with those folks. I'm the project manager, Cisco Brink. This is Judy Hendricks, the project manager at Sandia National Laboratories for the NMSBA program. I was telling a few of you that I think Kristen, when was the governor's conference on ED? Well, back in September, I went to a breakout session with I think
John Martinez.
I think the presenter was from Los Alamos, and I pulled. I forgot who it was. Aside afterwards,
Lucas or Megan.
I think so. But I asked them, hey, please come on out to Roswell. I mean, we have a legacy, a heritage of aerospace, of aviation, of technical stuff in Roswell. And so Judy was kind enough to come down to Roswell, and thank all of you for coming today. It's a small group, but it's a good group.
This is great. Because sometimes in Albuquerque, I'm happy if I get 4 or 5 people showing up. Believe me.
But Judy Hendricks, everybody.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah. So I work at Sandia National Labs, and I started. I'm a microbiologist. I was doing cancer research for many years. Ended up at Sandia. I was working with a physicist. He had what we call a smart scalpel. So it was a laser, and we're trying to see differences between cancer cells and normal cells. And that was actually 25 years ago. I was working on that. So at Sandia, I'm always amazed at sandia.gov. If you type in the word cancer or plastics or whatever you're into, it's amazing. You'll get a whole bunch of articles about scientists doing stuff. Like I say, we employ over 16,000 people at Sandia. Los Alamos employs about 11,000. And it's pretty much any area of science. You don't think of maybe so much the biology, chemistry, geologists, pretty much every area of science. And not just the energy, solar, wind, nuclear stuff too. So if you want to advance. So I'm the project manager for New Mexico Small Business Assistance. And it's a joint program. So both Los Alamos and Sandia, we're lucky we have the national labs here. And our state legislatures, they got it right. I'm always so happy we're going to say something that they got it right. They realized we have all these smart people, we got all these scientists and engineers at the labs. And how can we leverage that to help small businesses? So they gave us $2.4 million to Sandia, and Los Alamos gets $2.4 million. And the idea that pays for the engineers and scientists time to work with you guys, you have to be a New Mexico company, for profit. And then because we work with the state legislation, we work with the economic development. That's where the money is coming from, the Department of Economic Development through the state of New Mexico. So, and of course, if you're a nonprofit, you usually have a for-profit arm, because that's where, nonprofit pays taxes, right? For-profit pays taxes. So that's where we want to say you have a physical presence in New Mexico, not a P.O. box. I need that physical address. I need your New Mexico tax ID number, which is the old CSR number. So we get the gross receipts tax. Sandia pays about $100 million in taxes to the state of New Mexico. They say, we'll give you back if you work with companies. And we actually, keep track of the time. And it's a great program. It's free for you guys. So it's really the idea, we got this expertise at the labs. How can we share it with the state of New Mexico to really advance economic development? So, and what do we do in these kind of programs? We're often testing a prototype. I will say the program's been around since 2000. It's changed over the years, kind of what we do. We don't make the prototype anymore. we don't make prototypes. If you have a prototype, we can test it. And if you have a prototype that you're kind of working on, a model, we probably can work with that. We evaluate, we do imaging, we can do modeling. We have supercomputers. I was doing some stuff. There's a company doing it had to do with aerosols. And they were really curious with the certain designs when you breathe in for a drug that you're going to be inhaling, how the aerosol actually stayed up in the solution. We did some supercomputing. We have these guys, that's all they do is modeling, right? So really cool stuff, and it's free for the companies. And your state tax credit, 2.4 million pays for the engineer's time. What we ask of you, customer satisfaction surveys and economic development surveys. We actually go back to the state and say, I worked with Sandia, we worked with 130 companies last year. Who we work with and what's the economic impact? Did they hire someone? Even hiring someone part-time is big for the state of New Mexico. Did you get a grant? Did you increase sales? Sometimes you're very early in R&D. You still probably had a cost avoidance, hopefully, right? So we do hound you to do the economic development surveys, but it's free. You get free assistance worth, well, if you're here in this county, it's worth up to $40,000 unburned time. So next slide. What do you have? What's a technical challenge? We're not going to do water testing because there's people down the street doing water testing, right? We're not going to not going to make your website. There's people down the street. We don't want to compete with the commercially available stuff, right? But if you need some help, maybe you're doing blockchain and you have your own software guys, but blockchain gets really complicated. We have whole departments, that's all they're doing is blockchain. Working with robotics, working with plastics, material science. We have, if you think of any type of scientist, we have it. So when it comes to your technical challenge, do you need help testing it? We have really expensive equipment. We have hyperspectral imaging. We have electron microscopes. We have drop zone testing, fire testing, and that's the point of this program too, is to, you give us the product, our scientists run the machine, run the drop zone testing or fire testing, and you get a report. You're getting a written report. You're not getting money, not getting materials, but you're hopefully getting your problem solved. I had some guys, he had a number of different types of materials for fire resistance, and of course he wasn't sure which one was the best. Gave us the materials, we tested it in a really controlled, fancy fire starting. And he actually got to come on base and watch some of the testing. Testing a model, sometimes you're doing something and you really need to model it. We can do that and help with advanced imaging. So I do, like we're saying, we want stuff that's not commercially available for a reasonable cost. And sometimes you're like, I don't know, is this something commercially available for a reasonable cost? You submit, and then I figure that part out. And usually we can figure out a way, if we're doing some consultation, some testing, some imaging, that's not going to be available at a reasonable cost. So, and we're not going to give you cash or equipment. So you're not getting money. It's not a grant. You're getting assistance. So, and we also, like I say, we have all those scientists and engineers at Sandia National Labs in Los Alamos. Besides all of them, we work with MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnerships. I forget if you have a person, usually it's another state agency. It's the idea of free help for manufacturing. We want to keep manufacturing in the United States. So this group comes in and does lean manufacturing. They go in to the Cisneros brothers in Berlin. The guy originally, one dad, the grandfather started that company doing duct work in the back of his truck. He now has a $5 million plant in Berlin, and he's doing duct work for houses, but he wanted to get into pharmaceutical. So he needed help testing. So we work with them. And then he goes to MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnerships, when he's building his new manufacturing, and they figure out the lean manufacturing, how to really efficiently manufacture. You know, a lot of times it's moving the big equipment closer together and doing, you know, they're experts in that. So we work with MEP. We work with the University of New Mexico, both the Management of Technology, which is like the business school, doing like disruptive technology marketing. We don't just do basic marketing. It's got to be, you know, something not commercially available. Also the School of Engineering. So a lot of times School of Engineering, I work a lot with Cisco or Christos. Sometimes we don't have some of the fancy equipment. Well, engineering does. And they have a lot of engineers doing different things. So if it's a better fit there, you can end up working with someone, maybe an engineer there. And of course, we also work with, you know, New Mexico State and NMSU. You know, if you're doing maybe an agricultural bent, we might be, you know, working with one of the universities. So basically, you apply to one. It's one website for all this, for Sandia, Los Alamos, all our partners. You say, you give me a sentence or two, what's your challenge? And then we take it, we talk to you, and we figure out what partner is best to do it. And it's still free. Wow. It's free. So some success stories, I was saying, emerging technology ventures, a company, Cliff Hudson in Alamogordo. I was saying, if you remember, if you're from Alamogordo, you probably know the Monkey Lab down there. He's got some offices and economic development stuff now in those old Monkey Labs. And he's doing battery stuff and drone stuff. So he, you know, he's great. He works with tons of high school students and college students, does internships. He's got drones, robots, and flying and all this. He's looking at, he's working with the Navy to understand some of the corrosion issues that they have. Also with the wind turbine, you know, the big blades, even airplanes, to actually have the drones come and look for the defects. So he was working with our engineers. Our engineers have a lot of already imaging of real defects in planes and other structures. And so they could use his drones and their software and doing testing. So that was one of our success stories. He got a $2 million grant from the Navy, from NASA, and it, you know, was helping that he got results from Sandia. So he's a great guy. You're in. He's, like I say, you know, he's one of those guys that is always helping everyone and is really trying to keep the, you know, keep the kids here and make sure they're got some STEM background. Analytic technology, he was doing a standalone solar panel that he was going to put on the Navajo Nation. I have a whole department. That's all they do is solar panels and batteries. So they did some testing, helped them out, and he was able to get some of his prototypes downtown Aztec and on the res. So qualifications, you have to be a New Mexico company, you know, have that physical address. Usually I don't have, in Albuquerque, I actually go drive around because a lot of people, the address sounds a little strange and it's often an abandoned building. People want free help, but you have to have a physical address here in New Mexico, for profit and small business. Everyone's pretty much a small business. I'm excluding, you know, Intel. I used to say Ethicon. Ethicon's not even here. You have to be pretty big. Usually up to like 500 people is a small business. There's some weird things when you're a dairy farm and stuff, but usually can work with you. So a small business, for profit, and you have the New Mexico tax ID number, the old CRS number, because that's what we use for the state. The state follows that tax number. And like we're saying, we don't want to compete with commercially available stuff. So it's going to be a unique assistance. We don't give you cash or equipment, but hopefully you get a report that solves the problem and gets you over that challenge so you can move along. And all our projects are done in the same calendar year. So most of these projects hopefully last 4 or 5 months, maybe less. Next slide. So we have what we call individual projects. So it's one company saying, yeah, I need help. Whether we're going to be, imaging or modeling or testing your prototype. And these, we do individual projects until we run out of money. So a lot of times we got that 2.4 million. And the trick is we have to spend 2.4 million without going over. When you have a tax credit, we can't spend any more than 2.4 million. We actually over allocate because we know people get sick, or sometimes, sometimes a prototype just falls apart and we can't test it anymore. But for an individual project, you guys are all in what we call a rural county. If you're in Albuquerque or Santa Fe, you only get $20,000 of assistance because the state legislator said, I want to help rural New Mexico. So you guys get $40,000 worth of assistance. It's unburdened time. We're the only situation that's unburdened. If you did what we used to call work for others, if you wanted even $20,000 project work for others, you have to pay $60,000 because you got to pay all the overhead. You got to pay, all our medical benefits and all that, right? So this is unburdened time. So for $40,000 unburdened time, you're getting a nice chunk of change. The scientists can really hopefully solve the challenge. So, and it's used for the labor. Like sometimes if we need to buy something, they can buy something. Sometimes I'm working with a company and they might need antibodies that are really expensive. So sometimes the company buys the antibodies and gives it to the scientist because then it's more of the scientist's time to work on it. So, and of course, if you give us your prototype, we test it and we give it back to you. So there's also leverage. The idea, like the battery company in Alamogordo, he was working with a guy who was making batteries. He was working with one guy who made robots, another guy who did the drones. So there's all these companies coming together that he's consulting with, that he's working with. They can pool their money together. So leverage, we do a call twice a year, and we have a call out right now until February 3rd. So if you have a really big project that's going to take more than $40,000, if whoever you're working with, there has to be for-profit companies here in New Mexico. You write a proposal, 800 words. What's your problem? What's your solution? What's the economic impact for the state of New Mexico? How many people are you going to hire? How much is it going to increase your sales? Are you going after grant money? Tell the state, what kind of great success you're going to have in 3 to 5 years. So you can pool all. If we get 3 companies from Roswell, they each bring $40,000. That's $100,000 of unburned time. You are getting a team of people. The battery guys had a team. There was a bunch of people from the battery department for 12 months at $100,000. So they could really solve stuff. So yeah, we do those calls twice a year. The individuals, we just, until I have money, until I run out of money, I just keep doing projects. So sometimes in the fall is when we run out of money. So, and just to say, yes, we go all over New Mexico. We work, with the ranchers. One rancher was creating a device, a solar device to keep the water moving in the cattle troughs so they don't freeze. And we would test it. We actually put sensors, and we're trying to understand the best ways and how many pumps do you need and how big of a pump, So the person had the prototype. Our scientists love going around the state and setting stuff up and doing this testing. We have guys, they were raised on farms around the state, right? And they love doing this kind of work. So we're pretty much everywhere to show, how many businesses we've worked with. Like I said, every year we work with about 130. And Los Alamos works with about 100. So we're having impact, and the average salaries for a lot of these companies that we're helping grow is well above the state average. And the amount of money especially when it comes to increasing revenue and goods and services, and that's why, you get free assistance, but we're going to hound you for this economic impact numbers. We're one of the few people that go back to the state and say, yeah, here's the companies we work with and here's the results. How many people did they hire? And what kind of salaries of those people did they hire? And we do that because every year they often talk about getting rid of a state tax credit, all of them. So then every year we have to send Cliff Hudson from Alamogordo to go to the Roundhouse to say how much it's helping his company, and he just got a $2 million grant from NASA, which he wouldn't have gotten if he didn't have the results from Sandia. So it's really one of the great programs that I think is working pretty well. So how do you apply? It's really simple. The best way is to go online. You can fax something. I don't even know. You know what? I think we just got rid of our fax machine. Or you call me if you can't. We've had some ranchers that they have to go to the library and use their internet, right? But yeah, you can always give me a call. You go to the website and it says to apply for assistance. It's a one-page form. Yeah, you're working with a national lab. I need your name, your contact, your physical address here in New Mexico. It's going to ask, are you a foreign-owned company, and all that kind of stuff. What do you need assistance with? I just need a sentence or two. I'm going to give you a call within 5 days. So you put this in, it goes to our website, and we figure out what's the best fit. Is it Sandia? Is it Los Alamos? Is it one of our partners? Within 5 days, we'll give you a call and talk to you. And hopefully, sometimes within a week after that, I have a virtual meeting with you, the engineer, and me, talking about what you need help. The engineer writes up a statement of work. I put that in a document, have you sign it, and then we start the project. So considering it's a national lab, it's still really simple. We have a one-page application. So my legal department is getting more involved, but that's okay. So I think, there's also the TRGR program. This is a little bit newer program. I would say usually you start with New Mexico Small Business Assistance, but TRGR program, you can get $150,000, $100,000, one company, $150,000 of assistance if you have to be licensing our intellectual property, either Sandia or Los Alamos, or have an active CRADA cooperation agreement. And so we, at Sandia, we do R&D. So we have, patents. We want to work with the companies. You guys are supposed to commercialize it. We just come up with the great ideas, and it's very early. Our patents, it's pretty early stuff. But what was happening, we put all our licensable IP, it's on ipsandia.gov, and it's not easy. I have nothing to do with the licensing IP. That website is not easy to maneuver. It'll say, are you interested in biology or robotics or aerospace or energy? It takes a while to really go through and try to figure out what you might need. But you go through it and look at what the IP we have. We have some stuff for diagnosing different bacteria. Of course, there's all kinds of aerospace stuff. And it's amazing the type, and solar things. So we have all this intellectual property that we want to license to companies. We do R&D licensing, so you can try it out. My opinion, an R&D license should be $500. My licensing group thinks it should be worth maybe $1,000 or $2,000. You guys negotiate. During COVID, it was $0. We dropped all our licensing fees from our patents. So you could say, gee, I heard it was $0 at one point. And you could say, I think it's worth $500. It doesn't hurt to ask. So when you see all this intellectual property, yeah, you pay $500, $1,000, and for the R&D license. And then when you have the active R&D license, you can apply for TRGR. And TRGR is like leverage. You do a presentation to our council. You're going to tell us what the problem is, what's the solution, and what's the economic impact. And you're working with the Sandia scientists already. The Sandia scientist says, this is what I'm going to do and how it aligns with mission. And you can get up to $150,000, $100,000 of the engineer's time. You're getting a team of people for 12 months. And usually you're often working with the inventor. And one of them, the guy, we have a sulfur battery. And, you know, early R&D, he's got 50 cycles. It needs to do about 1,000 cycles if it's really going to make it in the commercial environment. So a company licensed it, did this. Now he's working with the inventor and his whole team. They're up to about 250 cycles. We'll see. But there's cool stuff. Like I said, you got to spend some time looking at the IP. I will say it's not, that part's not easy, but it doesn't hurt to look. So yeah, you just have to have that a cooperation agreement. These are big CRADAs. Either you put in $20,000 of your money, you can put in $20,000 of your time, but you have to go through the CRADA agreement, which is a little bit, that takes more like 6 months. To do a license, that should probably take a couple of weeks. You find some cool IP, say I want it, talk to the licensing guy, argue whether it's $500 or $1,000. You have to pay it, you have to have an active license, and then you can apply for trigger. And then you can get $150,000, $100,000 of the engineer's time for 12 months. And there's nothing saying you can't come back for seconds in both of these. So, you know, you get this great synergy, you get to know the scientists. So at Sandia, there's me, Judy Hendricks, and Martinez is the other project manager at Sandia. We have Megan at Los Alamos, and they just hired, it used to be Lucas, and Lucas went to AFRL. They just hired someone, and I don't even know the person's name. But yeah, you go to website, put your company's contact information, your address, and a sentence, what you need help with. And then one of us calls you in 5 days to talk to you about what do you really need. I want to make sure you don't want just basic water testing, and you don't want money or materials. We get a lot of that. You know, people, when you go to our website, sometimes it does look like you're getting $20,000 or $40,000 worth of funding. You're getting that in the time. So, yeah, so what questions do you guys have?
If I'm not to the manufacturing assistance part, I just need help navigating the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Do you have people that can help me get through that?
Patent and trademark, you know, we used to, I don't know how, we used to have TVC, Technology Ventures, and they had a patent guy, right? The Arrowhead Center is helping people with SBIR grants and some, I hear, some IP stuff. I did a white paper years ago saying we need help. I know the companies need help with this. And I was turned down by Sandia. It gets more, it's confusing.
Well, their website is, it's overwhelming.
Which one?
Complex, the
trademark. Oh, the trademark, yes.
Trademark
do you talk to, there's one person that she's really good out of Denver that will talk to you and help you.
On there. Okay.
And I can give you her number because there's some other help things. Patent and trademark is hard. And like the idea, so do you have a prototype?
I do.
If you need help testing the prototype, you know, that would be great. Writing the patent, you know, the claims. I have a number, I have like 9 patents. And it's like.
Did you use an attorney?
Yes, I did. And yeah, let me talk to you because that patent attorney, he's out of DC, but he's a microbiologist like me. So he'll be willing to talk to anyone.
Okay.
He just talked to 2 of my clients just a week ago. Because sometimes you just need that information, but there's also that person, I'm trying to think of her name was Holly, that's out of Denver. That's very helpful. But yeah, no, that is a gap, I think. I think the Arrowhead Center is trying to do stuff with IP to help, but it's hard if you don't have a patent attorney.
Right.
Yeah. And I'd be leery. I just was talking to a guy, he was saying it was going to cost him $700 on the innovation home.
Oh.
And $700, no, you're not getting a patent for $700. There's a lot of hidden fees.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I'll talk to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Is Cruces urban or is it?
It's rural. Only if you're in Albuquerque or Santa Fe. It used to be just Albuquerque. Boy, did that ruin my numbers. When Santa Fe became urban, it got too many people or too much money. So, but no, only Santa Fe County and Bernalillo County get the 20,000. Everybody else get 40. So, yeah. Even if Rio Rancho, I have a lot of companies down in Sandoval County, right? So you get 40,000 if you're on. So.
Do you find that the urban counties try to leverage with somebody from the rural counties so they can double up their money?
Sometimes if they're doing a leverage, yeah, and it depends what it is. Because a lot of times, I'll say, you know, the engineers that end up doing this kind of stuff, you know, a lot of them, they're working on a satellite for 10 years, right? They love working with the company and they get to do something in 4 or 5 months and get it complete. A lot of my urban companies, the engineers, they're working for free by the end of it. You know, but they love it. I have guys that were going, you know, on site on December 23rd and finishing projects, and they didn't have any money left. So these guys, our engineers that do this, really love working with the companies. Because I say, you know, a lot of them don't finish a project for about 10 years, but to work with you and have it a completion, and usually you get that synergy. So whether we say there's no continuation, but then next year, a lot of times you think of something else, a different problem, you know. So a lot of the companies come back, and you're allowed 1 assistance per year. So, yeah. What other questions? Hopefully not other stuff that we can't do. No.
Does your program provide cash and/or equipment?
No, that's an easy, but you know, from our website, I keep saying, see, Los Alamos created our website. I think like when it says to apply, I think it should say you're not getting cash or equipment, because some people still talks about the $20,000 or $40,000. So everyone thinks they're getting 20 or 40. I get, you know, all these like service people. I get, you know, people that have a storefront in Roswell I've talked to, and they're just about to go under, you know.
They're just giving you guidance. You have to go build whatever piece of equipment you're looking for, right?
No, I was saying, like, if you have your design, I always say we don't build prototype, but we could build you a model. And it comes in, the difference is wording. We're not going to be the ones making all your prototypes. I'm working with, actually, a guy who's got a really cool idea. He's a nurse at Presbyterian. But, you know, very, and we see something that's missing, that's really obvious. So he's got the design, he's getting it patented, you know, and all that. So we're gonna probably do a 3D model of what he's trying to do to understand how it works together. We're not gonna make him a prototype because that's not allowed, but I'm gonna make him a model. And then we can actually work with it, and here we're working with a design engineer. Our legal people don't like creating new intellectual property through this program. It even says in our terms and assistance document, if intellectual property is created, the company, you can elect title to it. That drives our legal people crazy. You can, or you can license it. You know, right now to write a patent, it's like $20,000 or $40,000. What happens if IP is created? DOE holds all our intellectual property. So it takes about a year or two for DOE to decide, no, I don't really want, you know, this part that's really important for you for your latest and greatest, you know, thing, exercise equipment or something. But it takes 2 years for DOE to say, no, I don't want it. It's first to file. So if you come up with the greatest sliced bread, you can always go to the patent office, write it, you put the engineer as an inventor. It's first to file. DOE, so our legal people look at all my statements of work to make sure we're not creating new IP. That's why I say I'm not going to make a prototype. I'm not designing something. You come with the design. I could make a model and then we could test it. But you're not going to rely on it. 2 years ago, people would rely on Sandia then to make the prototypes. Well, you know, the engineer in this program, he made me some prototypes. Now, 6 months later, I need some more. Well, your project's over. The money's gone. That's not a way you want to do your business, is relying on a Sandia engineer that you don't have a project with anymore, right? now we're very careful to say, I'm working with that project, we're gonna do some modeling, do some 3D printing, but working with the company to say, we gotta figure out where you're gonna have this 3D printed eventually. Where are you gonna have your prototype made? It's not us.
You seem to be coming from a view of manufacturing a part and selling it elsewhere. What about improving a process within the plant itself? Is that
Oh, yeah.
something that's covered?
Oh, yeah, definitely. MEP, often like if you're doing manufacturing, something on the manufacturing floor, doing lean manufacturing, the manufacturing extension partnerships often go in and do that. I mean, if you think of like Sandia, we're a bunch of R&D, engineers and scientists. So they don't know a lot about manufacturing. I mean, at Sandia, they usually have no budget, quite honestly, They'll make you the most expensive part, right? It'll work. But if you're looking at manufacturing for like testing and efficiencies and things like that, that might be something we can do. But yeah, realizing, at Sandia, we don't manufacture anything, right? We're just doing a lot of R&D. We're relying on the companies to help commercialize our ideas and help you guys do better manufacturing, more efficient. So, but yeah, it doesn't hurt to apply. If you got, you gotta need a challenge. I just need a sentence or two to get things started. And I have 2.4 million right now. At the beginning in January is when we get our budget. So I'm starting projects. Last year, say Sandia, we pride ourselves on we spend 2.4 million. And like I say, it's not easy to spend exactly 2.4 million. We're probably maybe just a few $100s under, which is perfection, right? So, yeah. So now is a great time to apply, to get hooked up with a scientist, and it can take 4 to 6 months maybe to complete, sometimes longer. But yeah. Any other questions?
Judy, if you have a provisional patent and you need to do and it's a highly technical project, and you need some computational modeling and, possibly some based on some existing CAD stuff, and want to help to fix, make sure that that's viable, is that a kind of project you guys
Yes,
are in?
definitely. Once you have a provisional patent, see that, and then that helps my patent. I say that in the statement of work. We already have a patent, so we're not creating anything new. We're just doing some testing. Well,
Or modeling.
or modeling. Yes,
Of
modeling of something that you already
of the
designed.
idea. Right.
Yeah. Years ago, people kind of had an idea, and that's, I want more than an idea to do a project. My legal people won't let me do it unless we have more than an idea, which makes sense. I mean, if it's that early, that's too early for our program. I always say, well, there's a thing called NMTRAC. NMTRAC is a bunch of retired Sandians, and they work with companies. They kind of deal more with the idea phase. So NMTRAC is a free service. It's a bunch of Sandia engineers.
TREK.
I think it's TR. It's hard to find. It's New Mexico.
TRGR.
No, that's Trigger, but New Mexico Trucks, NM, I think it's TREC, Truck. Forget what it stands for. I was just talking to the guy. We had a speed mentoring thing just yesterday at the Q station. If you're ever in Albuquerque, Q station is kind of a cool place. It's owned by AFRL, the Air Force. And there's a whole bunch they're trying to increase the space company synergy and lasers. So they give them a free place, and they give them free food and snacks. And that's how you get that to work. How do you get a bunch of companies together? Free food and snacks and free space.
That's good.
Yeah, Q station. Yeah, you could stop by, and then you can talk to the people there. There's a bunch of entrepreneurs, and they're supposed to be willing to talk to anyone who wants to. That's how they get a free space.
If you're involved in more than one startup, is that possible to do?
Yeah, each startup needs its own tax ID number.
Yes.
And sometimes, some companies think, I'll just create a new company. If the company, they're all doing the exact same thing. I have one company that's really focused, in solar panels, and then they're doing something else with water generation, so it's totally different. As opposed to, I'm marketing my solar panel, I'm making my solar, as long as they have different bents, it's okay to have the same people, different tax ID numbers. So, because then we can go back to the state, we get audited, so I just have to go back to the state and say, these are two totally different companies. So.
Versus the $400,000 in aid that went to the 10 companies that are all located at the same address, with the same owner.
Yeah. So I don't do that.
Yeah.
So, It used to be the Silver Mills. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, free help. And it's a great program, and the engineers love working with companies, and you get that synergy. So a lot of times you get to know something, you can do a project next year, or maybe sometimes there's a different bent, and then that engineer knows a perfect engineer that you need to talk to next year. So it's kind of getting to know the engineers.
Are there any limits if you're working with like the Arrowhead Center or somebody else where you're still eligible with this program?
Well, our partners, if you're working with MEP, and it depends, MEP sometimes has a workshop, and it's a small thing. If MEP is coming in and redoing your whole manufacturing and doing lean manufacturing for you, that's your $20,000, $40,000. Then you have to wait till next year to do a New Mexico Small Business Assistance, like with one of the engineers. But Arrowhead is separate. You can do as much. Arrowhead's got a lot of cool
stuff. So there's
stuff.
no restrictions.
Depending, it's with our partners. You have to pick one, or we pick one of the partners. If it's UNM Engineering, MEP, one of the universities. If it's
Yeah, and Cliff Hudson with UTV is frequently at Arrowhead.
Yeah, you know Cliff?
Yes.
Yeah. And what's your name?
I'm with Economic Development Department. Okay. I'm the regional representative.
Okay. Yeah, you do have a name tag. Yeah, he is great. So I started working with him 9 years ago, and he's been our success story many times over different. He's a serial entrepreneur, and it's amazing to see the change now, and now to get millions of dollars from NASA and Navy. I remember when I first met him, he wasn't sure, how he's going to pay his rent. Retired. Let's see. I think he's retired Air Force guy. Really cool guy. So, and very helpful, he's like someone who loves to talk to other companies too. So, yeah, well, I appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you.
Yeah, feel free
Thank you.
to submit your request.
Thank you for making the trip all the way out from Albuquerque, Judy. Appreciate it. You have a hard out of 3 o'clock?
Yeah. So I'll be hanging around.
Okay, so Judy will hang around for about 30, 45 more minutes. Feel free to mingle. Feel free to have some offline discussions. I'm going to cut the live stream. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Cisco.
Thanks, Cisco. I meant to thank you in the beginning.
Thank you,
I have it on my note. Thanks, Cisco. Thank you. You set all this up. This makes it easy.